Welcome back. We have this major coronavirus sell-off on Wall Street continuing. Lawmakers, though, are rushing to figure out a plan to protect the American people. Congress reportedly considering an emergency spending package that could provide between $6 and $8 billion in aid. That money would go to the Department of Health and Human Services, the State Department, Homeland Security, and the Defense Department. Joining me right now is Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee member and Senate Appropriations Committee member, West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito. And Senator, it's great to have you this morning.
Thank you, Maria. Great
Thanks so much for joining us. So assess the needs and tell us how much you believe is needed in terms of the supplemental money package.
Well, I would say in the short term, where we are right now, I think the Secretary Azar and others, Secretary Wolf from Homeland Security, have been able to use the resources that we've had in place for rapid response. What we're looking at now is what greater resources are needed to go to the states. And I think $6 to $8 billion is probably where we're going to end up. The initial ask, I think, was $2.5 billion. And I think you can see that growing. And the president said in his press conference, whatever you give, we will take. And so I think we're going to do a deep dive this next week on exactly what is needed to have the correct response on all those phases of response.
You know, one thing that this crisis has really taught us is how reliant the United States is on China. I mean, you look at some of the things that we're relying on China for, from the, plastic gloves and the masks to active ingredients in prescription drugs to these testing kits.
Right.
Why don't we have enough testing kits?
Well, I think that's an issue, and I think that I think a lot of it's been probably swallowed up by China because of the enormous problem that they have. So they've gone inward and are no longer exporting. But we're going to meet that challenge. We're going to have enough testing kits. I think we need to have confidence here in what was the most magnificent health system that, and certainly health researchers in the world. And so I think that testing kits, supplies. I heard from the head of the CDC that we have supplies, but really where we need the supplies are at the health worker state or at the hospital and folks that are going to be handling people. And so I think we need to not overreact here in terms of cleaning off the shelves, which is what we tend to do, to make sure that we're being smart and facing this in the right way.
But is this part of where the money will be used to make sure?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's for the preparedness.
It's for preparedness.
That all goes into that $6 to $8 billion that you're referring to.
Right, and it will go further towards the research of an inoculation, also for what types of medicines are emerging right now that might be able to help, like a Tamiflu type reaction. It's kind of an all hands on deck.
Let me ask you about this bipartisan aid effort. Some Democrats are still attempting to politicize this. We see it. President Trump tweeted this overnight. So the coronavirus, which started in China and spread to various countries throughout the world, but very slowly in the United States because President Trump closed our border and ended flights very early, is now being blamed by the do-nothing Democrats to be the fault of Trump, writes the president. The do-nothing Democrats, he continues, were busy wasting time on the immigration hoax and anything else they could do to make the Republican Party look bad, while I was busy calling early border and flight closings, putting us way ahead in our battle with coronavirus. Dems called it very wrong. Senator, your reaction to this? Here we are in a international crisis, and we're seeing finger pointing by, Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff and Chuck Schumer.
Very disappointing. But I think if you look what they said yesterday, I'm talking about Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi, they've kind of pulled back from that. I think they've realized we're looking at a potential health crisis. We're looking at people's fears rising every day. If you have a small baby or if you have an elderly person in your home or somebody who's challenged.
Yeah.
And so I say put down our arms, and we can do that on the Appropriations Committee and will.
Senator, good to have you. Thanks so much. Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Be right back.